such a fun question. I'm working on 3 major projects right now.
You need to accept, okay? Accept. Don't go away.
Yes, I'm like hand away from the screen. Everything looks like it's working on my end. How are you feeling?
Good.
Well?
So
Awesome.
we're here, just for the YouTubers, we're here with Angelyn, who is a wonderful Reiki healer, but also sound healer. And she has a gift with healing with her energy, I would say, because what people need to understand is that when somebody has gifts as a healer, and some of the people who listen to this live are also probably healers, therapists, coaches. Well, it's beyond the physical aspect of the person. There is really a soul who has experience in producing some type of healing. And when I'm listening to your sound healing, this is what I feel. I feel the vibration coming from your being, your soul. That's why it's efficient.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I think so. I mentioned that I'm transitioning fully into this space, and that's one word that I'm still that's an identity that I'm still fully stepping into, healer, right? It's such a loaded word for me. But I have a question for you. How did you step fully into owning that identity? Because I know you have such an interesting background in your life before this space too.
Well, it happened like a long time ago. It was 28 years ago, and I was at the time I was not a happy young man, and I had heard of a guy who had been trained by true Hindu like masters, like real miracle workers from India. And I met him, and the first meeting, he rose my Kundalini, and I felt it in like 3 minutes. It changed my life. Literally, I could feel the change. So that was the starting point, and I first did the work for myself, to heal, because I could feel my karma needed it. I mean, us specialists in energy and healing or interested in spirituality, we all know that we have things to heal. And then after like 10-15 years, I knew it was time to share, stop to just do the healing for myself, but to share. And now it's a passion.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that journey of like 10-15 years. It's time to share. I think one of my principles in what I'm putting together, the projects I'm working on, is you are your greatest healer. That's like the medicine woman's prayer, right? It's like, I'm not going to fix you. I'm going to walk alongside you and give you tools so that you can work on it yourself. So you know that you're never alone. You remember that you're never alone, but it's like, we are not doing that person's work, but by being beautifully ourselves and giving ourselves that permission, you open up a doorway for everybody else in your life that experiences you to do that.
So Angelyn, the first time we spoke, you told me a very interesting story about you being in DC and what you experienced there. By the way, you need to know that on YouTube, you're looking at the corner of the screen. So if you put the 2 cameras next to each other, it would be great.
Shift my setup. Here we go.
Okay, so yeah, what happened? What happened in DC, and it was very interesting when you told me about your shift and your decision to go from like a standard classic style lifestyle to who you are today, with your research.
Yeah, so my professional background was in creative production. So I started in like fashion, in streetwear, startup in LA. And then I took a little bit of a break and decided, okay, I would really, really want some structure. And I don't know where it gets more structured than the political lobbying sphere of the US. So I worked at a lobbying institution in DC as like a creative project manager. And when I was there, it was so beautiful, right? It was like, okay, I'm working as part of this big organization. We can focus on change. And then once I was in the organization fully, it was kind of like, oh, this is the hamster wheel that never stops. Like, this is a machine, and this machine can go on without.
So you didn't feel at your place, like you felt something was wrong.
I felt something was wrong. I was also working as a remote employee living in LA for people on the East Coast in DC, and those two cultures are extremely
But
different.
you also told me, we don't need to name, of course, the organization for which you
Yes.
work, but you also told me that you could really feel that through this official federal organization or local DC organization, the government was taking the money from the
So,
entrepreneurs, like literally sucking it up, you know?
right. And then it's like, wait, what is this cycle that I'm actually perpetuating? I'm perpetuating this cycle of saying that you cannot do it on your own. I'm perpetuating this cycle of saying that you need to give your power, your money away to an organization that can do this better for you. And there's nothing wrong with being part of a large organization or unionizing or collaborating in that way, right? But in the system that I was experiencing, it was just like, wait, what are we doing? Like, you give me money, 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 and then I'm going to tell you what you want to hear. But on any actual dividing issue, I was seeing money go on both sides of it. So it was like, okay, where is like the impetus for change? Where is like the honesty? And then, so as I was working
It
on,
was not a honest system.
no, I don't feel so. I don't want to discredit any of the work that people are doing there, but for me, it did not feel like the most authentic expression of where I wanted to be devoting any of my energy, where I wanted my life trajectory to go. And so it was really funny to be working in that space from 6 a.m. West Coast time to like 3, 4 p.m. West Coast time, taking like a 20-minute break, walking my dogs, and then switching my brain completely, like reopening myself back up to like come teach class, hold space, see clients. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was just such a wild shift.
And there are so many people right now who question themselves about what they're currently doing as like the main job, main occupation, and maybe they are also they feel trapped. Like I was before. I was, for instance, before I was in international finance. I worked during 15 years in banking, international finance. I was working from Paris. I'm French, French living in Portugal today, but
You don't
was
say you're
working.
French.
Yeah, I'm French. I actually was born in Paris. I was born literally 200 meters away from the Champs-Élysées.
Oh my God.
And by the way, I'm very happy about this because every time I was on my bike, you know, driving in, I mean, riding in Paris, and every time I was passing in front of the Eiffel Tower, I was looking at it with love, you know. And
Oh,
until one day, it was 10, 15 years ago, but one day, one of my uncles told me, you know, that our direct ancestor, like our great great grandpa, built the foundations of the Eiffel Tower. He built like it's like 30 or 40 meters deep foundations with steel and concrete and stones. And so,
oh my
anyways,
gosh.
yeah, so I was in finance working for American, by the way, brokers, you know, fixed income and then stockbrokers and then HSBC bank, you know, and I felt really like in jail. It was really like a prison, a golden prison, because of course,
Yes.
as a trader, I was very well paid. And I could not find, we're talking about the years 2000s, okay? So I could not find a job that would match what I was doing in terms of salary and sometimes bonuses. You know, I was inviting my clients in like 5 stars hotels, I mean, for the restaurants of 5 stars hotels. So we were having incredible lunches, you know, at the expenses of the company. So the conditions in appearance were wonderful, but in fact I felt trapped, and I was with consciousless people who had no idea how destructive they were with the world. So I was very unhappy.
Yes, right? That because that golden prison, you when you're living in it, that word prison drops off ever so gently and you're like, "Oh, this is golden." And that was a cycle that I saw even in like LA, right? Where it was like people worked their entire week to just get drunk and like wasted on the weekend to forget that they had worked their entire week away. And then that is the cycle of energy flow that you're in. And so I'm curious, when did you, or how did you leave that golden prison? Were you just like, may all of these bridges burn, or was it like a slow pullback? I think that was something that I had asked so many of my friends for advice about when it was time to make the switch.
I wanted to do it for a long time, but it was when I felt I could make a living with what I was doing. But it's not exactly how it happened. How it happened is I was helping some friends who were quite athletic to run faster. I have a gift. I can increase people's vital energy. And so for the Chinese or Japanese, that would be the chi, the key. So really the force, the same force that George Lucas was inspired by for Star Wars. And it was really working. People could feel an acceleration. So I started to travel and visit countries and meet with Olympic committees and ministers of sports in several countries, Turkey, Uzbekistan, Bahrain, Dubai, I mean, you name it. And everybody was interested, but nobody was really ready to invest. And one day I met with a Portuguese sprinter who said, I'm retired. I retired 3 years ago, but I'm still here in the system because that's the best thing I do. I have a pain in my leg, headache because I have problems. My coach says I'm not ready and I have no money to invest in your technique, but I want to try. So because I was coming from finance, I knew how to do the poker face, I say, okay, Francis, when do you want to try? Now. It's in 2 days. The guy just told me he's not ready. He has a pain in the leg. He's a sprinter. It doesn't work. But he says it's now or never, So as I like to recall it, it's the first time somebody with no money put pressure on me. I think if we have American people in the audience, you will really understand what I'm saying. It's like, what do you mean? What do you talk about? But I needed to get out of finance, as you said. And so I said, okay, we will film everything. And I did 5 20-minute sessions with energy. And we could experience an energy moment later if you want, by the way. So I did a few sessions, and 5 days later, he was the new European champion of sprint. He broke his lifetime record, although he was too old, and he broke Portugal's time ever, still today. And that was 12 years ago.
After 3 years off?
Yeah. No, he was not really off. He was retired. He had officially retired 3 years before, but he was still rehearsing, training, Right. But I mean, he was for sprint, he was too old. So that's how it started. And that was like a major, I was with my girlfriend napping. I didn't even have the tickets for the stadium. And we were napping and I had the alarm and I said, you need to think that was 2011. And back in Europe, our internet was a bit 3-4 years backwards towards the US. So I had some issues connecting to the stadium,
Oh my God.
And suddenly on my phone, I saw the guys started putting on the starting block, preparing themselves.
Yeah.
So I connected right like a few seconds before the race. And suddenly, pump, and it's 60 meters. It was indoors. It's 6 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
And in 6 seconds, 52 hundreds of a second, 6 seconds, 52, my life changed. He was number one.
So amazing.
And he destroyed the European champion. He was French, by the way, whom I met a few years later. I said, Francis, I trained him. He said, oh, it was you. Anyway, it's also to say, for the people who are interested in energy or healing with Reiki or sound healing with Angelyn, there are really very concrete, practical results that we searchers of light, you listening to us in our daily research, that we can get for ourselves or for the people we take care of. Exactly. Professional, sports, mental efficiency, it's really concrete. That's what people have a hard time to figure.
Yes, this past weekend I just taught a chakra workshop, and it was like when I can break down my energetic centers into clear, defined buckets, it makes all of this mental chatter a little bit more soft, and it allows me to be intentional about where am I flowing my energy to? How do these two energy centers relate to each other? How I have intuition, but if I'm feeling all of this anxiety in my solar plexus, am I really trusting my intuition or giving power to it? How can I allow this to flow better? And I think when we say like light worker or healer, it's something in people's minds, because we're all so institutionalized by like school, by TV, by pop culture, just shuts off. But if we explain it in a way where it's like, okay, well, can I pay attention to where I am flowing my awareness? Or can I break it down into, can I balance myself out? Can I chakra balance myself? um just that becomes so much more potent. And I think also where we're flowing our energy, like the concrete versions of it, I know now through this lens of how I look at life, like you had someone with no money offer opening a door to you, putting pressure on you, but that's also an invitation for you to flow your energy into this space of power. I feel like that was a universe or source asking you, Edward, do you want to do this? Like purely from helping people, out of all the places in the world, where would you want to flow your energy to?
Yeah, and what people need to understand also, I mean, for the people who listen to us, is that either you're already on the way to healing, helping people just by your presence. For instance, one of my dear friends joined the live. He's listening. He's a fitness coach. He's a sports coach with immense talent. But he knows that through his presence and energy and beautiful personality, he's helping people. But
Right.
what people need also, what is good to understand and to become conscious of, if you're listening to this, is that you are on the way to participate in this totally transformation of the world. And us people being so interested in energy or spiritual aspects of life or spiritual superpowers, healing superpowers, we don't know where we will be in 3 years, in 5 years, or 10 years, but it's going to be amazing because our gifts are just being empowered right now by the surge in energy.
Right.
And so probably everybody in the room today, everybody listening to this live will be in a place in just a few years' time where we'll all be shining like genuine suns, for all our entourage. And it's fascinating what's happening in the world right now. How do you feel it from your point of view, and especially from the US right now? How do you feel this surge of energy and changing times?
There are so many waves of it, right? So when we're talking about the US in a non-political sense, I will never say that a certain president was the best president of all time, but I will say that that person created this chain reaction of, oh, if that person can be president, why can't I be president? Or if this thing is happening in the government, why do I have to accept this? I think what I'm noticing in this like rise of consciousness is just the openness and the ability to question systems that don't work for people anymore.
Yeah.
Why is it so? We're like, I'm very LA topic, right? But it will affect the rest of the world because we all consume media. The writers' strike. I think like a Disney.
Yeah, for people who don't know what it is, so there is right now in Hollywood. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I need
No, please, yes.
Explain for all the viewers. So Hollywood relies on writers who write the screenplays for the stories for the films and series. And there's been 2 historical writers' strike because they felt they were underpaid and not really valued, which I believe also, because a good story is the foundation of any good film or work of fiction. And so the second historical strike is right now. Sorry for.
Yes. No, thank you so much for that context, because we all live in like these little bubbles, right? So I'm like, how much do people know? But with this strike going on, and where I'm seeing kind of like the rise in consciousness is this ability to question systems. So I saw an interview with one of the writers on strike, and like a CEO had said something about just like writers should just want to get back to work. Like you guys are being lazy. And one of the factual points is that like, okay, in the 80s, the average CEO made 30 times more than his lowest paid worker.
Exactly.
Now, 40 years later, the average CEO makes 400 times more than his lowest paid worker. And why is this a system that we play into? And so more of that questioning why is what I'm noticing truly.
100% agree. And because everybody loves the movies, you know, I need to tell you, because I wrote a screenplay in 2004. I brought it to the people from Original Films. They were the producers of Fast and Furious. I gave it to Frank Marshall, who's the producer of the Spielberg movies, etc. And there's an American saying in Hollywood. It says, you need to remember this because it's so clever. It's if it's not in the script, it's not on the screen. Ooh. And it's like a universal thing in Hollywood, for at least the old Hollywood, you know. That's because this expression is from the 60s or maybe older, and it's so true. And so every great film has a great screenplay, meaning that by underpaying and despising the writers who are amongst the true stars of a movie, you get bad films, and we get bad entertainment, and we don't want that. So let's challenge the status quo, guys.
Yes. And I'm so glad that you brought up, if it's not in the script, it's not on the screen, because I was just recently at another retreat doing like a journaling session, and one of my teachers had said, okay, what are we actively doing when we're journaling? And how does this relate? How does this all correlate back to energy, right? I have all of this like unrealized energy potential in my brain. So do you, so does everybody else. Thought. When I take a thought and pull it out of my mind and speak it into words and put it down on a piece of paper, the script, that thought has now manifested into my reality. It's not just a thought, it is a real thing now. It's a real thing that collects energy, that drives energy, that creates more from this. So with that too, I think that's kind of why the writer's strike is a bigger deal than, yes, one, questioning the systems, but two, empowering the people that create the realities that we live in. How many things from like TV shows like influence the next generation of youth to act in a certain way, to think in a certain way.
And if you allow me, let's suggest that everybody is watching this now, and us together, Angelyn, we now send an intention, you can call it a prayer or visualizing, of the whole entertainment business, not just Hollywood, but also Chinese, Indian, and French movies. You know, that's the four main producing markets in the world. So Europeans, let's say, they all start to produce films with consciousness and series with consciousness, because otherwise we're tired of all these vampire, living dead robots, killing robots, and end of the world movies and wars and bloodshed and guns. Let's set an intention. My way to say it would be, please, like, dear source, like, transform this entertainment world. And the fact that we're doing it together, if you center yourself in your heart, even if you watch this remote, you know, and in another time, our intentions will be together. And let's visualize now an entertainment and fictional production world where there is consciousness and stories that elevate us and motivate us and give us the will to be more in love and enthusiastic with this life and this magnificent world. And there can be great stories about whatever, competition and the foe, or healing, coming to age. It can be fascinating. It doesn't need to be cheesy. It can be really challenging, and it can be a fight, but at least it elevates us. And it's happening, by the way. Huh? I believe that in terms of energy, Hollywood is experiencing this second big strike, which is a real crisis because it stopped all the studios. You need to understand that the studios, the production company, they lose billions during this moments because they don't want to pay tens of millions. It's just this.
Yes.
Huh? That's this. Tens of millions, maybe 100, 200 millions. Not to pay this small amount, they lose billions. That's the stupidity. But it's a way to also for Hollywood to express there is a crisis, you know?
Yes.
So Hollywood is in crisis, and there's a new era with new vibrations coming in Hollywood too.
Right. And I know, so touching on the topic of crisis, I know a lot of my friends and like local community is impacted by it. You're living in Europe where there's a larger global crisis going on directly in your backyard. And you wrote this like really lovely meditation for my email list talking about like centeredness in times of crisis. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that and how you're seeing consciousness affect how people handle crisis in your part of the world?
Well, how people handle crisis in my part of the world is the same as in the US or anywhere else. I mean, the spiritual people, because it's really up to that. You know, the people start to work on their self-development, consciousness, or personal spirituality. It's the same proportions approximately in Europe, for instance, and in the US, and becoming more philosophical. Well, of course, trying not to follow too much the news, not to dramatize, being watchful of our thoughts and emotions. So it's the same amount of people starting to really be out of the crisis and not paying attention too much to it, and trying to shine and create a new reality for themselves and their family and loved ones. Now, as you probably followed, if you are in Europe, in the US, you never care about Europe. Some American people, I'm sorry to make these jokes, but you don't even know where Europe is. I'm sorry, but some people say, where is France? Africa. You know, so it's true. Sometimes we have these videos in Europe of American people. So it's more in the center of the US, you know, people never traveled. But it's true that the United States is such a beautiful country that most Americans never traveled outside of America. And so in Europe, maybe you know, but there are some riots in France. I mean, some demonstrations, let's say very heavy demonstrations with the cars on fire, etc. It's not the civil war, as some media tried to show, but it's a sign of we have enough. And I personally believe, you know, I don't want this. So I don't want anybody to believe that I'm pushing anything. No, I want peace and harmony, but I believe it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
And as you said before, Angelyn, you know, that's also a way for society to react and say, we need to challenge the status quo and build a better world, you know, just challenge the way of thinking and also the way the institutions are ruling the countries, you know, and the corporations. Right.
That's so beautiful. And it's that for anyone, I think when we talk about like looking at like crisis in an empowering way, or because it's not positive, I just wanted to be really conscious with the words, like in an empowering way where it's like in this moment of I could choose to worry and continue to play into these systems that don't really have my highest good at the forefront, or I can consciously choose to realize and accept what's going on and work towards a better future reality in my own way. And like, that does not look like rioting or protesting for everybody. Sometimes for other people, for me specifically, it looks like stepping into your own gifts. For you, it looks like stepping into your own gifts and then empowering others to do the same, because we don't have to continue to like pour energy into maybe like an unknown. We have the concrete steps of the future we want to live.
Yeah, and I think what is important to understand also is that we can have an impact through what you're saying on the events of the world. For instance, now there is a conflict in Europe that I don't want to name, but everybody's aware of it. And the three superpowers, nearly the four superpowers are involved in it: the US, Europe, Russia, and China. In more or less proxy way, and we can send intentions and prayers regularly, or blessings. When you ask the universe or the source to bless a country, a situation, it really happens. When we understand that the blessing is a blessing that comes from the source that is in the entire universe. For this source, however you call the creator, it is bigger than from our estimates, 2,000 billion galaxies. That's what we estimate today. So for this consciousness, this planet is minuscule. So to bring blessing to one country on this minuscule planet is like a child's game.
Yes.
So if we all do this with this consciousness that it's so easy, it can be peace overnight if there are enough people asking for that, then peace will prevail.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I love that. Collective. Yes, bringing it back to collective unity consciousness. Oh, that is the wonderful life, right?
Of course. So it's soon the end of this live. So just to remind you, Angelyn operates as a Reiki specialist and healer, and as a sound healer with great talent. She can work remote, right? You work remote, yeah. With people from anywhere in the world. I encourage you to try and take a session with her. And she can also see you physically if you are in the Los Angeles area.
Yes, I'm going to start traveling a little bit more, but we'll still be stateside for these sessions. I'm also working on a chakra workshop. So like a mini workbook that you can download if you want to just tune into your energetic centers. I have a free chakra worksheet on my website right now, thehealersranch.com. It's kind of like an example of it here, kind of just like a daily journal that has the prompts for each of our energy centers, and like it can be iterative over time. So I highly encourage people to use this free resource at their disposal. And Edward, how can my audience connect with you? What is the best way to work with you?
Well, first of all, there will be a gift after this live. So you need to go just to my bio in the YouTube description. There will be a gift with a meditation on money, because I just finished and put online, or maybe it will be put online in a few days, but a training that is called Abundance in a Crisis, because as we said, there is a crisis now in Europe and in the world, with most people can feel the price have surged like incredibly in the last 3 years, and especially in the last year, and the revenues of most people didn't change. So there is this crisis, and there is a way for spiritual people to really connect with the vibration of prosperity and abundance, because it's a vibration. And when you get the vibration, you start to have thoughts, emotions, and actions, of course, strategies that are aligned with this state. And it helps avoid a lot of efforts, and wasted years. So there is such a gift that you can find in bio. And also, if somebody wants to try a session with me, or just to have information about this abundance and crisis training, just message us and message my team, and we will answer you.
And your team is extremely lovely. Like,
yes, I'm very, very lucky.
Any communication.
Extremely lovely.
Yes, it's really true.
And clever. I mean, very efficient, but I'm very lucky, and never forget, please, if you watch us today, to as a part of your manifestation, your vision, to be surrounded with wonderful people who will help you grow,
Yes.
because we need people to grow, and we can't do this alone. And a team is always better than just one person.
Yes. And I think on maybe this is like a good closing note, a way to attract the wonderful people around you to build your wonderful life is by recognizing that you are wonderful. And that
Yes,
has nothing to do with you being selfish, nothing to do with you being self-centered.
absolutely.
It's just recognizing that you are a gift from source. And once you realize that about yourself, you see that reflection in other people too.
Should we finish on that? Let's ask maybe together
Yeah.
that each one of us recognizes, but from the at the soul level and at the heart level, that yes, I am, as you just said, I am a wonderful person, wonderful being with wonderful projects and destiny, as we said before, because you don't know where you'll be in 1, 2, 3 years. It may be somewhere absolutely amazing, where you will be the giver, or you will be a much bigger giver. And then, yes, as you just said, Angelyn, I deserve to attract wonderful people who will grow with me, who will grow together, who support me, and I support them. And it's already manifested. Thank you. Thank you, life. Thank you, source. We love you.
And so it is.
Yes, so it is. Thank you so much, Angelyn. The first time we spoke, we knew this would be wonderful. I'm so glad about this discussion between us.
Edward, thank you so much for
Yes,
connecting, for setting this up. I agree. I could talk to you forever. Thank you.
Yeah. And I look forward to our real physical meeting when I will come to LA, probably in this fall season. So
Oh, wonderful. Good. Keep me posted on
yeah,
your schedule. I'd love to
yeah.
see you when you're here. Thank
I'll come
you.
to see my friends in the movie business. Yes.
Yes, we'll all create a new reality together. Oh, that'd be wonderful.
So, I work with Jack Nicholson.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That's
it was
amazing.
crazy. The first
Gotta go
time my
to
friend say, "Let's call Jack." We were in Paris. Let's call Jack. He puts the phone on head loudspeaker, and I hear, "Hey, how are you?" So, can never forget this.
You have to open up. Okay, I dare you on your next call with your next interviewers. Just open up with that.
Okay, dear friends, thank you so much for your presence. We love you. Angelyn, lots of love to you, my dear. Thank you for your beautiful